I really thought this wouldn't be nearly as big of an issue since it's been about 2 years since the release of Dream Academy. Well, at least since the survival show on Weverse started. But it seems that people still want to drag on the beef between Adela and Mireille Bannerman, or better known as Manon. In case you didn't know, through the duration of Dream Academy, there were conflicts between the rest of the girls and Manon. They eventually seemed to resolve themselves as Manon started to work through her problems and eventually debut. However, I would like to take a deeper look specifically at Adela's points since she seemed to be more vocal than the rest of the girls. Before we get into this, let me start with the fact that this is a reality TV show more than it is a documentary. Everything showed in that doc should be taken with a grain of salt, and assume that there is more to it than what is shown. This especially rings true when you take into account that this was about 2 years worth of time shoved into 8 episodes. Also, this is in no way hate towards either of them. Both of them are right about certain things, but it doesn't mean either party is completely blameless. As for current career directions, both Adela and Manon are currently experiencing extremely successful music careers. Manon ended up debuting in the final lineup for Cat's Eye and is currently experiencing international fame. While experiencing a smaller fandom right now, Adela has put out 3 singles and has just recently signed to Capitol Records. While this label is known for newer faces such as Doechii and Kelly Uchis, this label has had some absolutely huge icons. This is Paul McCartney's current label. The Beatles were under this label, the Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra, and even Selena, not Gomez, were under this label. In case you haven't listened to Adela's music, it definitely reminds me of Charlie XCX in a way. Next, I'll be giving a brief context about Dream Academy and a summary into how it worked. Dream Academy was a survival show that was very different from every other survival show. Not only was it for a global group, but it wasn't broadcasted. It happened exclusively on an app called Weverse and relied heavily on fan voting. You see how this takes effect, especially during Adela's elimination. Weverse is an app created by Hybe that lets Hybe idols communicate with fans through messages, lives, and other methods similar to JYP's Bubble or the Fans app. There really isn't much to Weverse, so moving on. Dream Academy relied on both judges and fan voting to get a fair result. It is kind of similar to Universe Ticket, the show that formed Eunice. The only downside to fan voting is that people often will vote based on nationality or looks. We see this in Popstar Academy how Sophia was constantly getting a ton of votes thanks to being from the Philippines. However, girls like Adela, Emily, Daniela, and Brooklyn consistently struggled to get votes. Due to the fan vote and judges seeing Adela more like a solo artist, she was eliminated first. It was made very clear in the doc that the fan voting was a big part, but not as big as her not having the vibe of someone who would be in a K-pop global group or just any group in general. Manon was almost consistently in the top votes due to her visuals and, let's honestly face it head on, that she was a person of color being highlighted. You genuinely can't even call me racist for this. Even in the doc, clips were shown of people flipping out that a person of color was highlighted so much. I wish I didn't have to say this, but imagine if Manon was white. Would you guys still make Manon into this victim that had no faults? That might be a bit much for me to say, so let's just move on. Manon was scouted for the show by execs looking for more contestants. They ended up sending a team so that Manon could train until she was able to join the rest of the girls. However, unlike Laura, Manon was specifically scouted for her looks. I'm not familiar with if Laura actually auditioned, we just know that she came to the show much later than the other girls. Out of hundreds of thousands of contestants that had to audition and didn't make it, Manon was just brought in and was immediately the weakest link. You can argue that she had no idea what she's getting into, but technically, none of the girls were supposed to know this was a survival show. I've also heard people say that not everyone has the greatest amount of strength, endurance, or accommodation. Then why would you join a training program like Hybe? All of the girls knew about Le Seraphim. If you don't remember, Le Seraphim had their pre-debut workout made public in a show of some sort. It was so intense that it actually shocked most boy groups. Not to mention, ENHYPEN hasn't gotten a break in the last 2 years, and there have even been people wanting to boycott so that they stop getting so overworked. Manon should have definitely known or at least done her research about this specifically. You would think that Manon being the weakest link would encourage her to work twice as hard to get to the other girls' levels. I mean, Adela herself said she had to get used to dancing other styles because she was specifically a ballerina and auditioned as a vocalist. This is not what happened. Manon was skipping practices, not taking notes, and even breaking so many rules to the point that the execs, oh my god, I can't talk, and Manon mutually agreed that Manon should just live with her aunt. Of course, this did not help Manon's relationship with the other girls in the slightest. Adela caught on to her behavior as well as the other contestants. They all kind of distanced from Manon since she was not taking the program seriously. However, after the first round of live voting, Manon gets 4th place and Adela places last. Everyone is insanely shocked by this since Adela was the hardest worker in the program and considered a star. Manon was considered lazy and not committed. This of course led Adela and the other contestants to ostracize her even more. Eventually, Adela's elimination came. It affected everyone. Even in the show, you see clips of people crying after Adela gets eliminated because that is how much she was so rooted into the competition. She was friends with everyone, and the people affected most by her elimination were Laura, Megan, and Emily. It's actually really sad to see since you can actually see Megan's mental health start to plummet after Adela is eliminated. It's a sad thing to watch, and I believe after that, Manon brings all the girls together to figure out what she did wrong. Which is where you get the scene where they're all sitting on the dance room floor and Manon is talking to all of them. They tell her that it's really nothing against her, and it's just that they would love to see her work to her full potential. Shortly after Adela's elimination, she goes on TikTok on a mic with a song she wrote called Dream Bitch. It reflects her feelings about getting eliminated. And it's very obvious what it's about, especially after watching the doc. Hybe didn't have to show the song on the doc. They could have just let people go to Adela's TikTok and find it, but nope, they had a specific frame where they showed the TikTok of Adela singing. Of course, this is just a marketing tactic that actually several reality shows use. For example, a show that used this was Dance Moms, when they were trying to promote a rivalry between Chloe and Maddie, which is an example I actually use a lot in this. You can actually really tell that they're trying to use rage bait marketing, and it's honestly like pathetic. And this becomes even clearer when we get to that beach picnic scene between Naisha and Adela. They get to talking about being eliminated and how it feels to be eliminated, and how they think Manon doesn't deserve her spot. Adela herself went on Reddit when she was answering questions after she announced the release of Homewrecked, and she ended up answering someone's question about this scene and said that it was a bit staged and heavily edited to get the desired effect that Hybe wanted. Because let's be so for real, you don't just sit on a beach having a picnic and freely talk while there's a whole film crew in front of you. Also, it's just ridiculous that people cannot see that this scene is staged. Like, I thought we all learned from reality shows like Dance Moms, Toddlers and Tiaras, anything like that, that they will feed people lines and they do not feel shame about it. Now that you know kind of what all the beef was and like a neutral perspective on all the beef, I'm going to bring up why it's stupid and how it's, like, honestly really weird to keep bringing it up now. Adela plus all of the members of Cat's Eye have said that they hold no resentment towards anyone on the show. They all agree that it was a very stressful environment for everyone involved and that others would do the same in that situation. Aside from that, a majority of fans of Adela I have met hold no disdain for Manon. If anything, a majority of her fans also listen to Cat's Eye since that is Adela's roots. However, many Cat's Eye fans I've met absolutely hate Adela. I am talking about death threats, people saying in her comments, Manon is doing great by the way, and other things like that. Adela's most recent single was called Machine Girl, and it was a commentary on how the media, plus her stress, made her seem way worse than how she actually was. This is actually clear in the part where Grimes has a cameo in the video. Of course, people heavily twisted this into her still being bitter and trying to justify her actions. This is not the case at all. You can even see this in her lyrics where she says, "Why you coming at me, baby, yell at the machine girl." This of course means blame the circumstances, which basically restates what they have been saying this whole time. I'm genuinely sick of trying to post anything about Adela's music and being berated by comments about Manon and Cat's Eye. Even trying to defend her in certain threads on TikTok, I just keep getting berated by, "Oh, so you hate Manon, and you wanted her to be bullied." No? Is it really that big of a crime to just like both of them and genuinely enjoy both of their different music pictures? Even though the entire cast of Dream Academy had their differences, these issues have been long resolved. The project started somewhere around 2022 with training and development, and it is now 2025. It's been 3 years since the start of this. Everything we saw happen a year ago was a very condensed version of a 2-year period. There is no way to put that much time into only 8 episodes. We do not know everything that happened, and we might never know. However, one thing is for sure, there's no bad blood between Adela and Manon. Therefore, these fan wars are pointless and stupid, and they just need to straight up go away. Especially since they seem to just be extremely one-sided, with the Manon fans trying to blindly fight her battles. Anyways, that's all I've got, so thank you, bye-bye!